Mr. Speaker, we on side government regret the fact that Shinzo Abe attends the Yasukuni Shrine, which has 1,068 grave human rights violated, 14 of them which are Class A war criminals. We think it is abominable that Japan has refused to engage with its history of militarism, even though it's not in its national interest, and even though it causes grave moral harm. Three things as Prime Minister's speech. Firstly, why we think the vast majority are morally culpable in a way that deserves the shame that we advocate. Secondly, why we think the current context of a re-emerging Japan as a military power is so important. And thirdly, why we change the historical narratives in really productive ways for the majority of Japanese people. Firstly, moral culpability. We think the vast majority of Japanese soldiers in this war participated in acts that are deserving of horror and shame. And even those individuals who didn't were only arbitrarily in the position that they weren't engaged in those acts. We think those acts caused the death and psychological disintegration of soldiers from countries around the world, many of whom are Japan's allies currently, when they thought, when they were entering that war, they were entering it subject to the rules and the laws of war. That was denied those soldiers, and the vast majority of the Japanese force needs to be held morally accountable for that. Firstly, why are we happy with this particular stance? 4 reasons. The first, because there was widespread moral complicity in this act. There was widespread support for the acts that were done at the time. As I told you, 1,068 individuals in this particular shrine. Not the only shrine containing war criminals. Many dispersed from Japanese islands and islands that were occupied during that war. The second reason is because of the history of past silence. We think that past silence that the Japanese have engaged in over generation and generation is precisely conducive to taking a strong line against the acts that were perpetrated between 1939 and 1945. Thirdly, because individuals who participated in these acts and committed these acts received huge personal benefits. They got promotions. They were paid by a Japanese government who commissioned them to perpetrate these acts. Fourthly, because there was a culture of violence that all the individuals in the army were complicit in. That's the reason why individuals were forced into suicides by other individuals in the army. That's why there were mass great atrocities committed against prisoners of war, many of which weren't tried at the major trials because we only wanted to get the top dogs at that point in time. We think we need to go down the line to all those individuals who committed those sorts of acts against prisoners of war. Why is it so important to take a consistent stance against all these individuals? The first reason is because, as I told you previously, it was totally arbitrary who was the one who was selected to be on the front lines and commit the acts of war and who was elsewhere in that military structure. Even those people who were elsewhere freed up military personnel so that other people could commit grave acts of human rights violation. Because of that arbitrariness, we think that moral culpability should go across the board when there was widespread moral support and when there was complicity in the acts that were being perpetrated